Welcome back to my channel, Discover Your UK Ancestors. So you're watching this video, and maybe you've watched some of my earlier videos where I talk about the basics of how to start researching your ancestors. By now you've probably started to get the family history bug, and you'll want to find out as much about your ancestors as you can. If you've followed along with my videos so far, you may well have got to the stage of creating a 4 or maybe even 5 generation pedigree chart just by using the lists from civil registration, and of course backing these up with getting copies of the actual certificates, which can be either in hard copy or in a digital format. By the way, it's worth mentioning that when genealogists talk about a 3, 4, 5, etc. generations of a family, this number includes you. So for example, 4 generations is you, your parents, your grandparents and your great-grandparents. A reminder, civil registration in England and Wales started in 1837, in 1855 in Scotland, and in 1864 for the full records of Ireland, which included what we now know as Northern Ireland. In England and Wales, this means you'll be able to go back almost 190 years, 170 years in Scotland and 160 years in Ireland. If you need a reminder about where to find these vital records and how to get copies of the certificates, please watch my video called Life's Milestones, Birth, Marriage and Death. I have said it before, but it's worth saying again. You must get hold of copies of the certificates, because if you don't, you're basically playing a guessing game, and you'll be extremely frustrated if you find later down the line you've picked the wrong person. Not only will you have wasted literally hours of research, but you'll also have lots of work to undo. So let's say by this stage you've managed to create your 4 or maybe even 5 generation pedigree chart. This is a fabulous achievement, and for some people just the names, dates and places is enough. However, if you want to take the next step, you're going to want to uncover more about your ancestors' real lives, and so you need to decide where to go next. I suggest you go back to the beginning and document the essentials of your own life, where and when you were born, details of your siblings, your marriage and spouse, any children that you have, where you've worked and any notable achievements, things like that. It's good to start with yourself because it will give you a flavour of the type of information you'll be looking for relating to your ancestors. Once you've done that, the next step is to decide where to focus your next round of effort. A word of caution here, it's not practical to dive straight in and start researching the 14 people that make up your parents, your grandparents and your great-grandparents all at once. Never mind any great-great-grandparents that you've uncovered if you've been that lucky. You will very quickly become overwhelmed, and quite quickly you'll just lose the plot. So the answer is to be more targeted. So you need to decide where to start. Firstly, you need to choose whether you're going to follow your paternal or maternal line. A lot of people start with their father's paternal line because that's what gives you your birth surname. However, if this is Smith or Jones or another popular name, it may not be a good idea, simply because the number of results you'll get back from searches could be huge, and you'll get despondent if you can't find the right one. Or worse, you'll pick the one that looks closest to what you were expecting, and later down the line you'll come to realise that it's not right, and all the time, effort and money you've put in will have been wasted. I've had a problem in my own research looking for the death of my 3rd great-grandfather, John Smith. He was a tailor who was born in Newcastle upon Tyne, but his last known whereabouts was in South London. I've been researching my family for over 20 years and I still can't find the right record. It's got to be there somewhere, but this is an example of why starting your research with a John Smith is not for the faint-hearted. That said, if your ancestor had an unusual first name, this should make it a little easier, as your search results will be narrower, particularly if this name was used across earlier generations. I mentioned in my last video that in my family I had 4 generations of men whose first or middle name was Gabriel. Their surname is reasonably popular, but Gabriel isn't, so searching is made a little easier. If either your father or mother had an unusual surname, this may be a good place to start because there will be less records to sort through. However, with unusual names, you are more likely to find variations in spelling which you need to watch out for. Remember that in the 1800s, much of the population was illiterate, so the spellings on the civil registers were simply recorded at the discretion of the registrar and by the local enumerator in the case of census returns. You may also find that ancestors from smaller towns or villages will be easier to find. In the 1881 census, London had a population of over 3 million people, whereas Leeds had a population of just over 370,000. Hatfield Peveril in Essex, where I spent an afternoon last year in the churchyard hunting for the graves of my ancestors, had a population of only 1,300. In theory, the smaller the town or village, the easier it should be. This only works, of course, so long as your ancestors didn't move too far from where they were born. Alternatively, there may be a family story that has passed down through the generations that interests you and that you want to find out more about. If this is relevant to you, you should still follow the line back from either your father or mother until you get to this person. It's not a good idea to plunge straight into your great-great-grandmother, having disregarded more recent generations. Another deciding factor for where to start may be to consider what your ancestors did for a living. This is because landowners and people in professional occupations, such as lawyers or members of the clergy, were more likely to be well documented than, say, agricultural labourers, of which there were a lot in my family. Similarly, ancestors who were members of the armed forces may also be better documented. At the other extreme, if your ancestors were poor, they may have been given parish funds, which would have been recorded at the time, although sadly, many of these records no longer exist. So before you plunge straight into your more detailed research, here are my top 3 tips for how you can make the best start. Tip number 1, make sure you get the birth, marriage and death certificates so that you can be 100% sure you're going to research the right people. Guesses have a habit of turning out badly. Tip number 2, be methodical in your research. Don't swap from one branch of your family to another and back again with wild abandon. And tip number 3, ancestors with less popular names from small towns and villages and who had professional occupations are likely to be easier to research. In upcoming videos, I'll tell you how to access records beyond civil registration, such as census returns, wills, local directories, parish records and so on. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and share it with your friends and family. Please remember to subscribe so that you'll be notified when I post another video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them below. Thanks for watching and I hope to see you next time.